Smoke rose from the burning wreckage all around. The air was hot, filled with ash, fire, and the distant screams of war. Sergeant Mason Kane, a human warrior, moved carefully through the ruins of the alien city. His armor was damaged, his helmet cracked, and blood ran down the side of his face. But he kept walking. He was the only survivor of his squad. The battle between humans and the Xerans had raged for months. This was supposed to be the final push. The mission was clear: destroy the Xeron command center and end the war. But nothing had gone as planned. The city was now a graveyard. Buildings had collapsed, Xeron ships had fallen from the sky, and both sides had suffered heavy losses. Mason checked his scanner. It beeped weakly. There was movement ahead, a faint life signal, not human, faint. Almost dying. He narrowed his eyes and followed the signal. He walked past broken machines, glowing alien lights, and bodies of soldiers, both human and Xeron. The signal came from inside a strange dome-like structure. Buried in the ground, the entrance was cracked open, with his weapon ready. Mason stepped inside. The inside was quiet. Strange blue crystals lit the chamber. In the center, lying on a high platform, was a figure. A woman, not just any woman, a Xeran princess. Her skin was light violet, her hair long and silver like moonlight. She wore a royal robe torn by battle. Blood thick and dark covered her side. Her breathing was shallow. Her eyes were closed. Mason stopped. His heart pounded. He had seen pictures of her before: Princess Sira Zeltari, the only daughter of the Xeron Emperor. Her death would be a major blow to the alien empire. He raised his rifle, then froze. She was dying. She wasn't holding a weapon. She wasn't moving. She was just weak, small, hurt. For a moment, Mason saw not an enemy, but a person. He lowered his weapon slowly. Then he heard a voice, soft and metallic. "Sergeant Mason," said Kara, his AI assistant, from inside his helmet. "The target is wounded. No threat detected. However, her vitals are unstable." "She's dying," Mason said quietly. "Correct. Fatal blood loss. Her body is shutting down." Mason looked around. No guards, no medics. Her people had left her behind. "Kara, can we help her?" "Negative.
Yeah.
Biology is incompatible with human medkits. Chemistry shows 63% similarity to human plasma. With careful balance, a human transfusion might work." Mason blinked. "You're saying I give her my blood?" "It is not recommended, but it is possible." He looked at her again. Her lips were pale, her chest barely moved. She looked so still. Mason bit his lip. He had every reason to let her die. She was the daughter of the enemy. Her empire had killed millions, but something inside him said no. He walked closer and knelt beside her. Her skin was cold. He took off his glove and pressed his fingers too. Her neck still alive, but just barely. He pulled out the field injector from his medkit. Kara adjusted the settings. Begin transfer. Monitoring vital signs, he pressed the injector to his arm. The needle slid in. Blood flowed into a small container, mixed with stabilizing agents, then connected to a second injector. Carefully, he inserted it into the alien princess's arm. Her body twitched slightly for a moment. Nothing happened. Then her fingers moved. Her eyes fluttered. Her chest rose more fully. Her wounds began to close. Slowly but surely, Mason stared in shock. "It's working." Suddenly, her eyes opened wide, bright, glowing silver. She gasped and sat up halfway, staring at him in confusion and fear. Her voice was soft but sharp. "What have you done?" Mason raised both hands. "Easy, I'm not going to hurt you." "You were dying. I gave you my blood." Her eyes narrowed. She looked down at the injector in her arm, then at his injured body. She seemed to sense the truth. "You, a human, saved me." Mason nodded once. She leaned back slowly, her breathing steady now, but her expression unsure. "Why?" he shrugged. "Because I could. Because I didn't want to leave anyone to die like that." She didn't answer right away. Her gaze moved across the room, then back to him. "You should not have done that," she said quietly. "Too Late now, Mason said. You're alive. She looked down at her hand. It trembled slightly. She closed her eyes, and Mason suddenly felt a strange tingle in his mind, like someone was brushing against his thoughts. He pulled back quickly. What was that? You gave me more than blood, she whispered. I can feel memories yours. Mason frowned. What kind of memories, War? Fear, pain, loss? Her eyes met his again. And kindness. He didn't know what to say. A moment passed in silence. Then they both heard it, a loud, sharp boom outside. Enemy ships were returning. Patrols, search parties. Mason stood and looked toward the door. We have to move. Princess Sarai looked. Weak, but alert. They will kill you for helping me. And they'll kill you for still being alive. Another explosion shook the ground. Mason grabbed her hand. Come on. If you can walk, I'll get you out of here. She stared at his hand for a second, then placed hers in his. Together, they left the chamber, stepping out into a world still burning. The war wasn't over, but something had begun. Something no one expected. A bond between a human warrior, an alien princess, a bond of blood, and whatever happened next, it would change everything. The jungle outside the city was dark and full of strange sounds. Huge trees with glowing leaves blocked the moonlight. The ground was soft with moss, and strange insects buzzed in the air. Mason Kane moved carefully, holding his rifle in one hand and guiding Princess Sira with the other. She was weak but walking. Her feet were bare. Her royal robe torn, but her silver eyes were alert, watching everything they had been moving for. Hours behind them, the burning city was now quiet. Enemy patrols were searching the ruins. Mason knew they would soon find the dome empty and realized the princess was gone. He had to get far away before that happened. How are you feeling? He asked softly, keeping his eyes on the trail ahead. Sarai was silent for a moment. Then she said, My body is strange. Strange how? I feel stronger and weaker. My energy rises and falls. My skin is warmer, and I can hear. Thoughts? Yours? Mason stopped walking and looked at her. What do you mean, hear my thoughts? She tilted her head, not clear words. Feelings, emotions, pain, worry, a memory of your brother. In a burning village, his eyes widened. You saw that? Sarai nodded slowly. Only for a second, but I felt your fear and your sadness. Mason looked away. That memory was buried deep. Wasn't something he ever talked about. Not with anyone? He took a deep breath. It must be the blood. Yes, Sarai whispered. Something in your blood is changing me. They continued walking, pushing through thick plants and strange glowing vines. After some time they found a small cave hidden behind a curtain of green leaves. Mason led her inside. It was dry and hidden from the sky. This will do for now, he said. He set down his gear and pulled out a small light from his bag, placing it in the center. A soft white glow filled the cave. Sarai sat against the wall, breathing heavily. Her face was pale, and her fingers shook. Mason opened his pack again and handed her a water pouch. She stared at it. You drink it, he said, taking a sip to show her. She copied him, then closed her eyes. It's refreshing, smiled a little. Just water. Nothing royal about it. She gave a weak smile back, but then her face turned serious. Why did you save me, really? I was the enemy. You had every reason to leave me. Mason leaned against the wall, silent for a moment. Then he said, Because war makes monsters of everyone. I didn't want to be one. She looked at him, eyes wide. My squad was wiped out, he continued. I was alone, angry, tired, but when I saw you lying there bleeding, I saw a person, not a target, not a princess, just someone about to die. Silence hung in the cave. I didn't want to be the kind of man who walks away from that, Mason finished. Sarai lowered her eyes. You're unlike anyone I've met, even among my own kind. They sat quietly for a while, listening to the wind outside. Then Sarai gasped. Mason turned quickly. What is it? She held her chest. Her body shook. Her skin glowed faintly purple. I feel something changing inside, like fire under my skin. Let me check your vitals, Mason said, pulling out a scanner. But as he brought it near her, the screen flickered, then cracked. What the hell? Sarai stood suddenly. Her eyes were bright like stars, and the air around her shimmered. Then, with a pulse of energy, her body rose 2 inches off the ground. Mason backed up Sarai. She looked at her hands. Sparks danced between her fingers. I can feel the earth, the sky, your heartbeat. Her voice echoed slightly, like 2 voices speaking at once. Then, just as quickly as it started, it stopped. She fell back to the ground, breathing hard. Mason rushed to her side and caught her before she hit the floor. He helped her sit. You okay? She nodded slowly. I don't understand. That never happened before. My powers were always small. I could sense thoughts, but now I feel more. Mason stared at her, amazed. You're evolving. My people will fear. This, she whispered, a princess touched by human blood, changed by it, and mine will fear you too, Mason said. They won't understand. They'll call you a weapon, or worse. They looked at each other, both realizing the same. Truth, they couldn't go back. Suddenly, Kara's voice buzzed in Mason's helmet. Warning, scanners detect movement. 3 heat signatures approaching from the northeast. Estimated arrival, 90 seconds. Mason stood quickly. They found us. He grabbed his rifle and helped Sarai to her feet. She was still weak. You run, I will try. They moved quickly, exiting the cave and heading deeper into the jungle. Mason kept low, using trees as cover. He could hear distant voices, now Syrian soldiers, speaking in their language. They're hunting me, Sarai said, trembling. My own people. They think you're a threat. Or maybe they want to silence you before the humans find out. You're alive. She looked at him. Would your people do the same? Mason didn't answer. A shot rang out, blue plasma hitting a tree near them. Go, Mason shouted. They ran. Branches slapped their faces. Roots tried to trip them. Mason fired back blindly, slowing the attackers. They slid down a hill and hid behind a large fallen log. Sarai clutched his arm. I can't run much more. They're too close, Mason said. We have to fight. I can try. The energy again. No, Mason said. You'll burn yourself out. Another plasma bolt struck near their feet. Mason turned to fire, and one of the attackers jumped over the log. A tall Xiran warrior aimed a spear at Mason's chest. Before Mason could react, Sarai raised her hand. A burst of purple-white light exploded from her palm, slamming into the attacker and throwing him into the trees. The jungle went still. Mason stared at her. Her hand still glowed. Her hair floated slightly as if touched by static. You saved me, he said. She looked at him. I will do it again. You gave me your blood. I owe you my life. They kept running until morning. Finally, they reached a cliffside, where Mason saw a long river below. At its edge, he spotted a half-buried escape pod, likely from an old battle. It looked damaged but might still work. As they climbed down, Mason spoke softly. We need to leave this planet. Get to neutral space, maybe a science station. To learn what I've become? Sarai asked. He nodded. She looked at the sky. You changed me, Mason. Not just my body, but my mind. I see things differently now. Same here, he said. I've fought your kind for years, but now I don't even know what the word enemy means anymore. They reached the pod. Its systems flickered, half live. Mason began working to power it up. Sarai sat beside him, her hand still glowing softly. Inside her, something was growing, not just power, but a bond. A link to the human who saved her, and whatever they were. Becoming. The galaxy wasn't ready for it. The stars looked peaceful from orbit, but peace was a lie. Inside the stolen escape pod, Mason Kane worked fast. His hands moved over glowing controls, trying to keep the pod stable. Sparks flew from a broken panel, and smoke filled the air. Beside him, Princess Sarai Zeltari sat quietly. Her skin shimmered with a soft glow. She stared out the window, watching the stars. Her eyes looked calm, but her fingers were tight around the seat. "We're losing power," Mason muttered. "I can feel it," Sarai replied. "The systems are failing." Mason looked at her. "We need to land somewhere. There's a neutral station not far from here, outpost K-17. Mostly scientists and traders. No soldiers." Sarai nodded. "Can your people be trusted? They don't follow orders from Earth or the Zarin Empire. If we're lucky, they'll help us." She gave a small smile. "We haven't had much luck so far." Mason smirked. "Let's change that." He pulled a lever, and the pod began its descent toward the outpost. Outpost K-17 floated above a quiet moon. It was old, rusted, and surrounded by small cargo ships. Inside, aliens and humans worked together, fixing machines and trading supplies. As the pod landed roughly in a hangar, alarms blared. Mason opened the door and stepped out, his weapon ready. Sarai followed, her robe now covered by a dark cloak. She kept her head low. A group of guards approached. One of them, a tall human with a cybernetic eye, raised a hand. "Identify yourself." Mason held up his badge. "Sergeant Mason Kane, UHF. I need medical and tech support. Priority level red." The guard narrowed his eyes. "You're supposed to be dead." Mason shrugged. "I got better." The guard looked at Sarai. "Who's she?" Mason paused. "She's with me." The guard frowned but waved them through. "Stay out of trouble." As they entered the station, Sarai whispered, "He didn't know who I was." "Good," Mason said. "Let's keep it that way." Inside the outpost, they found an old Zarin human researcher named Dr. Lorena, a scientist who had left both governments years ago. He examined Sarai's blood under a glowing scanner. "This is incredible," he said. "The fusion is deep. Her DNA has merged with human strands." Mason crossed his arms. "Can you explain it?" Dr. Lauren nodded. "The blood you gave her didn't just save her. It activated dormant cells inside her body. The princess is no longer fully Zarin, and not fully human." "Then what am I?" Dr. Lauren leaned forward. "You are something new, a hybrid, and maybe the first of your kind." Mason frowned. "Is she dangerous?" Lauren shook his head. "No, but she's powerful. More than she realizes." Just then, the station lights flickered. Karas' voice buzzed in Mason's ear. "Warning. Incoming vessels detected. Zarin warships. They've found you." Mason stood up. They tracked the pod. Dr. Lauren looked worried. "You need to leave." Now, Sarai grabbed Mason's arm. "We can't keep running forever." He looked at her, then, "What do you suggest?" She took a breath. "Let me try something." Outside, the sky was dark. 3 Zarin warships circled the station. Their speakers echoed across space. "Surrender the princess, or be destroyed." Everyone in the outpost panicked. Mason stood by the hangar doors, rifle ready. Sarai stepped forward. Her cloak fell to the floor, revealing her glowing skin and silver eyes. The wind moved around her as if it recognized her presence. She lifted both hands. A pulse of energy moved through the air. Lights across the station flickered again. The ships paused, and then she spoke directly into their minds. "Amsira Zeltari, daughter of the Emperor. I live, I am changed, and I am not yours to command." Mason felt the words inside. His chest, not in his ears, but in his heart. The Zarin ships paused. Then one fired a warning shot. Mason ran forward. "Sarai, stop. They'll kill you." Sarai turned to him. Her voice was calm. "Let them try." She raised her hand, and the air around her cracked with light. A beam of energy flew from her palm, hit the warship directly. The ship stopped firing. Its engines failed. It drifted away in silence. The other 2 ships turned on, retreated. The outpost was silent. Everyone stared at her. She lowered her hands slowly. Her knees shook. Mason caught her before she fell. Back in the station, Sarai rested. Her powers had left her exhausted. Mason sat beside her. Watching her sleep, she looked peaceful now. But he knew peace wouldn't last. When she woke, She whispered, I saw something. What I connected to the ships. What did you see? Memories. Secrets. My father, he knows. He knows I'm alive. Now he fears me. Mason nodded. Good. Let him fear. She reached out and took his hand. Mason, there's something else. What? When you gave me your blood, something more happened. I don't just feel your emotions, feel your presence, your life. We're linked. Mason's eyes widened like a psychic bond. Yes, she said softly. If you die, I might die too. Silence filled the room. Then Mason whispered, Then I guess I'll have to stay alive. Later, Dr. Lauren returned with news. The humans have found out too. Earth's command knows the princess survived. They believe she's been weaponized. They're sending a squad. Mason clenched his fists. They're coming to kill her. Lauren nodded. Both sides fear what you've become. Mason turned to Sarai. We have to leave again. Where will we go? She asked. There's one place left. The hidden world Valdari. It's full of exiles, outlaws, people who've left both empires behind. Sarai's eyes lit up. They might accept us. They might, Mason said, and if not, we'll make our own way. They stole a small scout ship from the outpost. Mason piloted it through the asteroid belt. Sarai sat beside him, her hands glowing faintly as she controlled the ship's shields. They moved in perfect sync, her powers guiding his hands, his focus steadying her mind. They were no longer just soldier and princess. They were partners, linked by blood, chased by both empires, and heading toward a world where no rules existed. Ah, world where the future could begin. As they left the system, Sarai stood at the window. Watching the stars, she turned to Mason. Do you ever wonder why this happened? Why us? He looked at her and smiled. Maybe the universe got tired of war. Maybe it wanted to try something new. She nodded. Then let's not waste the chance. Mason took her hand, and for the first time in a long time, they both felt hope. The sky of Valdari was green and gold, the twin suns glowing behind a thin curtain of clouds. Far below, the land stretched in wild, strange shapes, jagged mountains, dark forests, and cities built into cliffs. No human flags flew here, no Zarin. Banners, just freedom and danger. Mason Kane landed the stolen scout ship on a flat cliffside. Dust rose from the dry ground as the engines cooled. Beside him, Princess Sarah Zeltari watched the sky with wide, curious eyes. She had never seen a place like this. There were no soldiers, no orders, no rules, just voices on the wind, and freedom. This is it, Mason said. Valdari, the edge of everything. Sarai nodded. It feels different, like a place between worlds, Mason smiled. That's because it is. They entered the city of Corvex, built into the rock wall of a massive canyon. Tents, towers, and strange machines covered the stone. People of all kinds moved through the streets, humans with cybernetic arms, insect-like aliens, floating robots, and even some former Xeron soldiers wearing rags instead of armor. This place was full of those who had been rejected, escaped, or betrayed. Mason kept a tight grip on his weapon. Sarai stayed close, her hood pulled low. After hours of searching, they reached a hidden tavern called the Broken Star. Inside it was dark, filled with music and low voices. Glowing sign said, "No flags, no loyalties, just survival." The far end sat a tall figure wearing a long coat and a metal eye patch, Captain Varric, an ex-human officer turned smuggler. Mason had met him years ago during a Black Ops mission. Varric looked up as they approached. Well, Mason Kane, I thought you were dead." Mason smirked. "Not yet." Varric's eye narrowed. "And who's your friend?" Mason leaned in. "Someone very important. Someone both Earth and Zero want gone." Varric raised an eyebrow. "You're protecting her?" "Yes," Mason said. "I need a safe place. And a favor." Varric leaned back in his chair. "Favors are expensive." Mason dropped a small device on the table. "This holds data from a Xeran command, ship routes, codes, locations. Sell it, and you'll be rich for a year. Varric picked up the device. He scanned it, whistled, and nodded. Deal. He looked at Sirai again. You must be something special. I'm not something, Sirai said calmly. I'm someone. Varric laughed. I like her. Later that night, Mason and Sirai stayed in a quiet cave hut carved into the rock wall. Mason checked the security grid. We'll be safe here for now. No one follows the law in Valdari, but most follow money. Sirai sat by the window, looking at the stars. Her skin glowed faintly. They will come for us eventually. Let them try, Mason said. She turned. To him, Mason, something has been changing inside me again. He walked over. What do you mean? She took his hand and placed it on her chest. I feel your presence more deeply now, like your heartbeat is part of mine. Mason looked into her eyes. The bond, she nodded. It's growing. I feel more than just you. I feel others. Anger, fear, betrayal. Mason frowned. Where? She closed her eyes. Here, in this city. Someone is watching us. The next morning, Mason left. To meet an old contact. He told Sirai to stay hidden. But while he was gone, 2 strangers arrived at the door. One was a woman in a human officer's uniform. The other was a tall Xeron male with dark eyes. Sirai froze. She knew their faces. Commander Voss, Earth's elite agent, and Carrollton, the Emperor's private assassin. Voss stepped forward. Princess Sirai, you are far from home. Sirai stood tall. I have no home now. Carrollton's voice was like ice. You carry something dangerous inside you, the bond. It must be broken. Sarai's eyes glowed. I will not go with you. You have no choice, Voss said. Come. Peacefully, or we take you by force. Before Sirai could answer, Mason burst into the room. Back away from her, he aimed his rifle at Voss. You're on outlaw land. Duh. You have no power here. Voss smiled coldly. Power comes with ships, Kane, and ours are just above the clouds. Carrollton stepped closer. You are the cause of this, human. You infected her. Mason didn't blink. I saved her. Voss sighed. Enough talk. Take her. The moment they moved, Sirai unleashed her power. A burst of light and wind blasted the room apart. Mason shielded his eyes. When he looked up, the 2 attackers were thrown back. No. Stunned at CRA stood in the center, glowing brighter than ever before. I'm not your weapon, she said. I'm not your daughter. I'm not your enemy. I'm free. They escaped into the streets, running through tunnels and alleys. Mason guided them to an old mining shaft hidden in the cliffs. Inside, they caught their breath. That blast, Mason said, gasping. It was stronger than anything before. Sirai leaned against the wall, shaking. It took everything I had. But I saw into their minds. They planned to capture us, split us apart. Study the bond. Mason sat beside her. They're scared. Yes, she whispered. And now I understand why. He looked at her. What did you see? She touched her chest. This bond. It's not just emotion. It's creation. My cells are changing, mixing, becoming more human. And your blood year. Memory is now part of my mind. Mason stared. Then were. She nodded. 1. Later that night, Sirai dreamed. In her dream, she stood on a battlefield made of stars. On one side stood humans with cold machines. On the other, Xerons with glowing weapons. And between them, herself. Alone. But then Mason appeared, holding her hand. She looked down and saw thousands more like her, not just hybrids, but children of peace, born from both worlds, stronger, kinder, new. She woke up with tears in her eyes. The next day, Mason and Sirai stood at the edge of the cliff in the sky above. Human and Xeron ships hovered silent but threatening. We can't run anymore, Sirai said. I know, Mason replied. So what now? We make them listen, she said. One last chance. Mason took her hand, and together, walked toward the signal tower. It was time to send a message to the galaxy, not of war, but of change. The wind on Valdari's cliffs howled like a warning. Mason Kane and Princess Sarai didn't stop. They climbed the ancient signal tower together, step by step, hand in hand. The tower had not been used in years. Rust covered the metal. Old wires sparked weakly in the wind. But it still worked. Above them, 2 fleets hovered in the sky. One carried the symbol of Earth's high command. The other flew the dark banners of the Xeran Empire. They were here for one reason: to stop Sarai and Mason before their bond changed everything. As they reached the top of the tower, Mason looked at the screens and power cables. "We'll only get one broadcast," he said. "Then they'll jam us." Sarai nodded. "One is enough. If they hear the truth, even one sit might spread." Mason adjusted the signal. "Dish. You ready?" Sarai stepped forward, stood tall, her silver eyes glowing. Her body shimmered with a faint light. Her voice was calm but carried strength. "I was born a princess of the Xeran Empire," she said into the microphone. "Trained to rule, taught to fear humans, told they were monsters." She paused. "Then I was left to die on the battlefield. Wounded, abandoned. But a human warrior, Mason Kane, gave me his blood. He saved my life, and it changed me." Her voice grew louder. "I felt his pain, his memories, his heart. And I saw the truth. Humans are not monsters. They are just, like us." Mason stared at her as she continued. "Now I am not fully Xeran and not fully human. I am something new, and I believe the future needs something new." Static hissed across the screen. The signal was being jammed. Ships above began to move. Sarai looked at the camera one last time. "You can try to stop us, kill us, silence us, but you cannot erase what has begun. A bond stronger than fear, stronger than blood, stronger than war." Then the screen went black. Within minutes, missiles streaked down from the sky. Mason grabbed Sarai and pulled her away from the tower. The top exploded in flame behind them. Rocks cracked and fell. Smoke filled the sky, but they were already running. Back through the cliffs, back to the hidden tunnels. Karas voice buzzed in Mason's helmet. "Human Command has issued an arrest warrant for Sergeant Kane. Xeran Empire demands the princess be returned dead or alive. Both sides are mobilizing ground troops." Mason growled. "Let them come." They reached the old cavern where exiles and outcasts were hiding. Soldiers, rogues, and wanderers stood ready with weapons. Not for war, but for defense. Captain Varric waited with his crew. "You really stirred the stars this time," he said. "Both empires are angry." Sarai stepped forward. "Will you help us?" Varric raised an eyebrow. "You've still got that Xeran command data?" Mason tossed him a small chip. "Updated this morning." Varric caught it, smiled, and nodded. "Then yeah, we'll help." The battle came fast. XER and dropships fell from the sky like black rain. Human drones followed from the other side. Cliffs shook with fire, but Valdari was full of fighters who had nothing left to lose. Sarai led them. Not as a princess, but as a symbol. Her powers had grown. She could now stop bullets mid-air, create shields of light, even calm the minds of angry fighters with a single look. Mason fought at her side, moving with deadly skill. But more than that, he was her anchor, partner. Together, they pushed back wave after wave, but the fleets above wouldn't stop. Soon, they'd destroy the whole moon just to erase the bond. That's when Sarai had a final idea. In the heart of Valdari's ruins, there was a core chamber, a place where ancient tech still pulsed. Long ago, before either empire or race had lived there, they left behind a machine that could amplify thought, memory, connection. Sarai stood before the core, shaking. "If I enter it," she said, "I might be able to send my mind across space. Show others what I see. Let them feel what I feel." Mason frowned. "It could kill you." "It could," she agreed. "Or it could save everything." She turned to him. "But I can't do it alone." "Ah!" "The bond is our strength. I need you with me. He looked into her glowing eyes. Always. They stepped into the machine together. Wires touched their skin. Lights swirled. The air hummed. Then, silence. Across the galaxy and ships, stations, colonies, even battlefields, people suddenly stopped. They felt something. A vision memories not their own. A young human boy crying beside his brother's grave. A Zeren girl watching her city burn. A human hand reaching out to save an alien life. A bond, a heartbeat, a shared pain, and a shared hope. The vision lasted only seconds, but it was enough. On Earth, commanders paused. Orders to attack were frozen. On Zira, the Emperor fell silent. His generals stared at him, unsure. In space, fleets powered down. The chips turned. Missiles were called back. No one knew why, but they had felt something. And suddenly, killing didn't seem like the answer anymore. Back in the core chamber, the machine went dark. Smoke filled the air. Mason opened his eyes first. He coughed and looked around Sirai. She lay beside him, still quiet. He crawled to her side. No, stay with me. Her skin was cold, but then her fingers twitched. Her eyes opened brighter than ever. You're here, she whispered. Always, Mason said. She smiled weakly. Then I can keep going. Weeks later, peace talks began for the first time in decades. Neither side trusted the other completely, but both remembered the vision, the feeling. Sarai stood before both councils no longer a princess, but a leader of the new path. Mason stood beside her not as her bodyguard, but as her partner. Together, they formed the United Sovereignty, a new alliance made not by governments, but by hearts, an empire born from a bond. The last scene was quiet. A garden on Valdari. It's filled with strange trees and alien flowers. Sarai sat under the stars, her hand resting gently on her stomach. Mason knelt beside her, placing his hand over hers. Are you sure? He asked softly. She nodded. Yes, it's growing. A child of both our worlds. She looked into his eyes. Born from war, but meant for peace. He smiled. And for the first time in his life, Mason Kane felt truly home. Not because of a planet, but because of her, and the bond that would never break.